All right. I'm going to hand off to you then. Okay. All right. Yep. Morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the members behind me, particularly for Representative Williams and the team assembled here behind me. These members have been working very hard on this crime package. To my left, you'll see the poster where we're discussing the various policy items that we are pursuing in terms of combating violent crime. They deal with prevention, policing, prosecution, and punishment. This continues to be one of the top issues that we hear from constituents, and that's why the House Republicans have always backed the police and, more importantly, represented victims and looked forward to having their voices in the process. Representative Delosier, who's behind me, has been a longtime victim advocate, and she has been a wonderful spokesperson for that. And we understand that there are some in the criminal system who seek reform, and that should be rewarded. Unfortunately, there's a number of individuals who not only deserve to be in prison, but deserve to be in prison for a very long time. And it's that balance that we're seeking to strike with this package, because we understand and believe in second chances, but we also believe in punishment when you have done the crime. And particularly with violent crime, as we opened the package 2 weeks ago, that is a very real issue, not just in some faraway cities, but in many of our own neighborhoods. And that is why we're looking to create safer communities now and ensure that people feel safe. People feel safe to go to work, they feel safe to go to school, and that they understand what is going on in their communities. Representative Williams spoke at the opening press event regarding neighborhood watches and ensuring that people have the proper tools and ensuring that the police have additional eyes. All of this is very important as we look forward, not just to the end of this session, but quite frankly, the beginning of the next session with our eyes towards retaking the majority. We are focused on representing our friends and our neighbors and ensuring that they are safe. With that said, I'll turn it over to Representative Williams, and he will then hand it off to the other members of the team who have been diligently working on this package for many months prior to its introduction. And I want to once again thank them for all of their hard work and being great representatives and voicing the concerns of the people that they represent. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Leader. And I would be remiss if I didn't also say that there's a great number of very dedicated staff in the backdrop who've been helping us draft this package, helping us organize it in a way that's understandable not only to the General Assembly but to the public. With that, I'd like to highlight a couple of recent incidences in Philadelphia. Just yesterday, teenagers were getting off a bus of SEPTA in the city and were aggravated and turned around and got into gunplay, gun battle, and injured 3 women who were on the bus. Shot 3 women that were on the bus. They were innocent bystanders in, as I said, the use of firearms in Philadelphia. And just last week, 14-year-old Dawn Watson was killed in a hit and run. Killed in a hit and run while standing there with her mother. My reading of the account of that incident was the mother couldn't find the body immediately after the incident. The police had to find her because she had been hit and dragged such a distance. Imagine being a parent, standing next to the road with your teenager, somebody beyond their tender years, thinking that this is an age where finally my child is safe, and they're just nailed by a vehicle. Now, this wasn't an accident. The suspect is still at large, considered armed and dangerous. This is the world we live in. This is the reason my family doesn't go into the city. This is the reason many families across Pennsylvania are not going into the cities or other places where crime is out of control. So we've introduced this series of bills, as the leader described, on on a number of pillars. And the pillars were prevention, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, by way of community organizations, not-for-profit organizations, encouraging people to step forward and report crime. We moved on to policing, prosecution, and today we hit the final pillar of punishment. And I'd like to talk just for a moment about the bill that I have in this portion of the package of bills, which is to make the sentencing guidelines presumptive. To do that, let me add just a little bit of context from my background. I'm a former federal prosecutor from both Denver and Philadelphia. I prosecuted a wide range of crimes, including terrorism, drug interdiction, drug task force, but the main staple of my prosecutorial career was gun crime. I was a Project Safe Neighborhoods prosecutor. Project Safe Neighborhoods specifically uses Title 18, Section 922G to prosecute felons in possession of guns. I've said this for the 4 years that I've been in the General Assembly. It is a federal and a state crime for any felon to be in possession of a gun, even if he's not using it. So when you arrest a prior convicted felon and he's found in possession of guns, you've committed a federal crime. Local authorities ought to be taking these cases immediately to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And the reason is this. The sentencing under the federal sentencing guidelines for a violation of 922G is tremendous. And the reason it's tremendous is it's based on your criminal history. And since an element of the crime is that you're a prior convicted felon, the sentences are big. And because the sentences are big, it is a huge deterrent in our community. A huge deterrent in our community. And the reason is this. There is no parole in the federal system. You can earn good time for good behavior, but it is not parole like you see in the state system. And in addition to that, notwithstanding a Supreme Court case guaranteeing that judges have discretion in sentencing, they still may not deviate from the federal sentencing guidelines without good cause. And that's exactly what my bill does, which is to make the Pennsylvania sentencing guidelines, which are right now only that, guidelines, presumptively applicable unless there is good cause shown by a judge. That's the entire game. No more coming in at the bottom of the sentencing range, no more disparate sentences throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Consistency in punishment is a deterrent. Not only is it a deterrent, it is a public safety concern because we are getting the worst of the worst off the streets. I'm here to tell you, in all of those cases that I took to trial, the main motivation for the defendant going to trial was not innocence, but the severity of the punishment. They would rather roll the dice and go to trial on a 3-element crime in the hopes that they could beat me on that, and they didn't, because the sentences were so severe. The sentencing guidelines in Pennsylvania could be just as severe if we only applied them. And again, that's the import of my bill to here, is to make them presumptively applicable in concert with constitutional requirements that judges still have some discretion if they are so articulated. Now, I want to say this is also dovetailing with 2 more bills that you're about to hear from Representative Owlett about consecutive sentencing. Too often in the state system, judges will do what's called concurrent sentencing, which is piling one sentence on top of another and having a defendant, a convict at that point, serve them all at the same time. Consecutive sentencing gets rid of that problem, and then Representative Bonner is going to talk about providing us with a database of judicial decisions with regard to sentencing. This is a package that we've been working on for months, if not the better part of this year. We have a big election coming up in about a month, and I'm here to tell you the House Republican Caucus is going to be continuing this work into December to be ready for the January session to offer this bill of packages again, because we are serious about protecting you. We are serious about Pennsylvania being a safe state for people to live, raise a family, and work. I thank you for your time, and God bless you.
Thank you, Representative Williams, and thank you for your leadership on this. Good morning. And for the victims of violent crime, justice is really all that they have. They can't go back and erase their experiences. Even if they have to recover from this, I mean, it's still going to be a physical harm, possibly, that they've suffered, or emotional toll, and the fear and trauma will always be with them. Knowing that their perpetrator is being held accountable for their actions, that justice will be served, is often the only path to peace for survivors of violent crime. So imagine finding out that you're not the only one that the perpetrators of their victims. And you go through the court proceedings, and you find out that there are multiple crimes and multiple victims, and that there's a recommended sentence for 10 years or more. And then you find out as the victim who suffered in some way, and you're going to have to suffer for the rest of your life, that you feel vindicated from this and that they're going to pay the price as well. But then you find out that the judge decides that the perpetrator they're going to serve the sentence concurrently versus consecutively. In other words, if the perpetrator is convicted for a separate violent crimes that carry out a sentence of 10 years each, you assume that they're going to serve 40 years for their actions. But when the judge uses discretion in this, they decide the sentence can be served concurrently. The perpetrator will only serve a maximum of 10 years. That doesn't sound like justice to me. I'm not an attorney up here. I have the privilege of working with lots of them, but it really doesn't sound like justice to me, and it doesn't sound like that to the victims of these violent crimes. Therefore, this proposal in this package of bills would remove the judge's discretion in such cases and would require the offender to serve a sentence for each victim harmed by requiring consecutive sentencing rather than being able to do it all at once. In addition to this, kind of looking back, we also have another bill in this package that has to do with face masks. And we've seen that during COVID-19 that these are used really strategically to hide their identity. So we're offering a new criminal offense for wearing a disguise specifically to avoid the apprehension of police. So this is another part of this package of legislation that I think is really important to be able to take this seriously. We have to protect our communities. It's our job in government to make sure that we have safe communities. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this package and look forward to continuing to work on it this year, but then also next year. It's important to start the work now, and hopefully we can get it done and get it passed, because safe communities are very important to everybody that I serve. I look forward to working with my colleagues to get this done. Representative Bonner?
Good morning. I'd like to thank my colleagues who have participated with me in preparing a number of criminal justice reforms that we believe will more effectively address the significant crime rate that is present not only in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but throughout the United States. One crime is too many. All you need to do is ask the victim and the victim's family members the devastating effect that crime has, not only within that family, but those who surround that community and across this nation. I'd also like to thank my colleagues who are with us here today in support of this package of criminal justice reform. In the criminal justice system, the time period from the date of arrest of a suspected criminal until the date of the verdict on the charges can be very dangerous for the victims of crime, their families and their friends, as well as the community. Weighing against the need to protect the community against the potential for further criminal activity by the individual who has been arrested is the recognition that all individuals at this stage of the proceedings are presumed to be innocent. The setting of bail then by a judge during this stage of the proceedings is meant to give some assurance and some protection to our community, while also safeguarding the accused presumption of innocence under the Constitution. Bail is the tool that is used by our courts in order to have a balance in protecting communities, as well as protecting the constitutional rights of the accused. Bail has been a constitutional right within our criminal justice system since the founding of our nation and the founding of our state. Article 1, Section 14 of the Pennsylvania Constitution establishes the right to bail for those accused of crime who are presumed to be innocent at this stage. They can remain free while the proceedings are pending unless the individual poses a danger to the community or he is a flight risk so as he would not show at the next court proceeding. But there are no guidelines to assist the courts in determining how do they set bail in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. At this stage of the proceedings, when the individual was first arrested, the police, the prosecutors, the defense lawyers, and the judges often disagree as to the potential threat to the community, as well as to the need to recognize the presumption of innocence of the accused. There is little consistency then in the guidelines in setting bail in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Each of the 67 counties have their own approach to bail, and that is failing the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, because we see some counties where bail is very minimal for very serious and violent crimes, and yet in other counties, bail is very significant. For example, Philadelphia may see a minimal bail required for an armed robbery, and yet when you go to a rural county, you will see bail set at $100,000 for a very similar crime. The setting of the bail then by the courts has caused great controversy within our criminal justice system. And we have seen complaints as to racial, gender, age, and income bias in the setting of the bail process. There are many complaints then about the setting of bail in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There is very little consistency from county to county, and we need to bring some uniformity to this process. And the legislation that my colleagues and I are proposing to address this issue will accomplish greater justice for all involved. My colleagues and I then are proposing legislation that will require the Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission to gather pertinent information from the 67 counties and across the country to develop fair and consistent bail guidelines to aid the parties and the courts in establishing fair and reasonable bail. The Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission, of which I am a member, is a bipartisan commission comprised of legislators, judges, prosecutors, defense counsel, and citizens. It was formed in 1978 to try and bring uniformity to sentencing across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it sets guidelines for judges to follow based upon the past criminal activity of an accused, as well as the current charges which the accused faces. These guidelines became effective in 1982 and have proven to be highly successful and more just in the treatment of criminals and in the protection of communities across the Commonwealth. I have practiced law both before these guidelines were implemented and since the guidelines were implemented, and I can advise you that this was a great step forward in providing justice to all involved when these guidelines were implemented in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In establishing bail guidelines, I would expect that the Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission will analyze the severity of the offense, the degree of violence that has been involved, the safety risks to the community and the victim, the defendant's prior criminal record, the defendant's employment history, his family ties and ties to the community to help establish a very fair yet firm bail to protect the community from alleged further criminal activity. Once the Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission develops guidelines to the setting of bail across Pennsylvania, this proposal will then come back to the Pennsylvania General Assembly for their review and consideration. If adopted by the General Assembly, the legislation setting bail guidelines will be sent to the governor for his or her consideration. This proposed legislation, then, is meant to bring fairness and justice to the setting of bail in Pennsylvania, so that the accused constitutional rights are protected and the victim and the community are confident that their safety and welfare is at the forefront of the proceedings in our criminal justice system. As Representative Williams indicated, any criminal activity is too much. And as a society, we cannot tolerate or accept crime occurring within our community. If we continue down this path, certainly anarchy, chaos, and the undermining of our democracy will occur unless we effectively address crime. I thank you for your time and your attention.
So that's our final press conference on our 4 pillars of our crime bill package over the last 2 weeks. We thank you for coming out here today. Representative Owlett, thank you for your participation in this group of bills. We have Tioga County represented here, and of course a former assistant district attorney from Mercer County. That's every corner of the Commonwealth has been represented in this package of bills because crime touches every county in our great state. That is what it means to our caucus. We're going to try to do our very best to make our Commonwealth safe. We will be around for a few minutes to take questions if there are any. And again, thank you for coming out today.